In the vast expanse of Earth's history, there have been periods when entire families of creatures vanished from the face of the planet, leaving behind only memories and fossilized remains. These were not just ordinary extinctions, but the disappearance of species that had ruled the world for millions of years, their dominance so absolute that they seem like mere myths today. This tale delves into the lives and times of some of these remarkable creatures, their rise to power and their eventual demise. Our journey begins 500 million years ago, when the oceans were teeming with strange and bizarre life forms. Among them were the nomurids, creatures that resembled shrimp, but were monstrous in size, with spiky appendages on their heads and terrifying mouths that resembled pineapple rings of doom. These nomurids were the first apex predators on Earth, prowling the ancient oceans with eyes that could see prey from a distance and grabby arms that ensured their meals would be secure. For millions of years, the nomurids ruled the oceans, feeding on everything smaller than them. However, their reign came to an end when another group of creatures emerged, the placoderms, also known as armored fish. Among them was Dunlopus, a fearsome predator that weighed 4 tons and had bone shears for teeth. It was so powerful that it could chomp down with the same force as a T-Rex, and it left behind fossilized vomit as a testament to its brutal hunting tactics. But even the armored fish eventually met their end, succumbing to the Permian extinction, an event that wiped out 96% of all marine life. However, while the oceans were struggling to recover, some creatures were prospering on land. Trilobites, tiny arthropods with compound eyes, had been around for 270 million years and had survived multiple mass extinctions. They were so successful that they might be the most successful animals that have ever lived on Earth. However, even the trilobites met their end during the Permian extinction, leaving behind nothing but their strange and beautiful fossils. But while the oceans and land were struggling to recover, another group of creatures emerged in the oceans, the ammonites. These spiral-shelled cephalopods were not only able to cheat death for 350 million years, but they also had the ability to control their depth by filling their chambers with gas or water. Ammonites were everywhere in every ocean, every continent, and every time period for hundreds of millions of years. They even survived the Permian extinction, but then came the asteroid that hit Earth 66 million years ago and killed the dinosaurs. The ammonites, who had survived every other catastrophe on Earth's history, finally met their end. The world had ended, but the ammonites just kept swimming until they were gone. While the oceans were struggling to recover from the loss of the ammonites, another group of creatures emerged on land. These were the tennispondals, giant amphibians with heads the size of bathtubs and jaws full of teeth that could crunch through anything. They had thick, knobby skin, and some of them were able to spend their entire lives on land. The tennispondals were the top predators in freshwater ecosystems for 230 million years, surviving multiple mass extinctions and climate changes. But then true crocodiles arrived and took over the freshwater predator role, and the tennispondals disappeared. Meanwhile, on land, there were even weirder experiments happening. The most famous of these is Dimetrodon, a creature that most people believe was a dinosaur, but is actually from a time period 40 million years before the dinosaurs. With a sail on its back, jaws full of teeth, and a body that was 11 feet long, Dimetrodon was the apex predator of its time, eating everything from other pelycosaurs to amphibians. But Dimetrodon and its sail-backed cousins were not the only strange creatures that roamed the land. There were also the gorgonopians, amphibians with saber teeth, that grew to be 20 feet long with heads the size of bathtubs. They were the top predators in late Permian ecosystems, hunting the abundant plant eaters of that time. However, just like the tennispondals, the gorgonopians eventually met their end during the Permian extinction, leaving behind no survivors. But while the oceans and land were struggling to recover, another group of creatures emerged in the oceans, the ichthyosaurs. These marine reptiles looked exactly like modern dolphins, except they had huge eyes with a mouthful of teeth. The ichthyosaurs were fast, efficient, and deadly, and they dominated the oceans for 180 million years, longer than dinosaurs have ruled the land. They spread to every ocean on the planet and survived multiple extinction events and climate changes. But then, during the Cretaceous period, something went wrong, and the ichthyosaurs started disappearing. No one is sure what caused it, but by the time the asteroid hit and killed the dinosaurs, the ichthyosaurs were already gone. But while the oceans were struggling to recover from the loss of the ichthyosaurs, Another group of creatures emerged, the plesiosaurs. These marine reptiles had two ways of being successful. They could either grow a neck so long it looked ridiculous, or skip the neck entirely and just make their head absolutely massive. Both approaches worked for about 135 million years. The long-necked plesiosaurs used their ridiculous necks to sneak up on fish, while the short-necked plesiosaurs used their massive heads to bite through anything. Both types used the same swimming method, four flippers that they flapped underwater to fly through the water. They lived in every ocean, adapted to every marine environment that you can think of. Some even spent time in freshwater rivers and lakes. But then, the asteroid hit 66 million years ago and killed all of them along with the dinosaurs. Speaking of dinosaurs, let's talk about some of the weird ones. Take the Tyrannosaurus, a creature that looked like a giant, feathered chicken with enormous claws. These creatures had the longest claws of any animal that has ever lived, and they used them to pull down tree branches so they could munch on them peacefully. These peaceful giant claw monsters survived for a while, but then the asteroid hit and killed all the dinosaurs, including the Tyrannosaurus. But while the dinosaurs were dying out, birds decided to get creative with the predator thing. After all the dinosaurs died, birds looked around at the empty landscape and made a business decision. Instead of staying small and eating seeds, some of them would become 10F tall murder machines with beak shaped for chopping things in half. And this plan worked great for about 60 million years. These terror birds had skulls that were 3 FT long and jaws that could bite through basically anything. South America was basically bird paradise back then, with no big mammalian predators and no competition, just terror birds and whatever they felt like eating that day. Different species specialized in different prey sizes. Some hunt small mammals and others could take down horse-sized animals. But then, about 3 million years ago, North and South America connected, and mammals that had spent millions of years competing with each other and getting really good at killing things started showing up. Mammals like jaguars, saber-toothed cats, and bears. Terror birds that had been living the easy life couldn't compete with that level of evolved lethality, and they died out. But while some animals took the opposite approach and just got ridiculously large, others took the defense strategy to the extreme. Gypodons, for example, turned themselves into living tanks with shells made of hundreds of fused bone plates and tails that ended in spiked clubs. Dodocaurus was 10 FT long, weighed 2 tons, and could probably survive getting hit by a truck. The shell was not just thick, it was engineered, with multiple layers of bone plates arranged in a dome shape that could deflect attacks from any angle. These armored mammals spread across South America and even made it to North America when the continents connected. They grazed peacefully on grass and low plants, while being completely untouchable by jaguars, saber-toothed cats, or anything else that might want to eat a 2-ton armadillo. Their shells were so well built that they've survived as fossils better than almost any other mammal bones from that time period. Some are so perfectly preserved that you can see the individual armor plates and the patterns on the surface. But then, humans arrived in the Americas around 15,000 years ago, and the armored mammals met their end. Early people figured out how to hunt them, butcher them for meat, and use their shells as portable shelters. Archaeological sites show clear evidence of humans eating armadillos and living under their shells. So yes, intelligence beats armor every time, apparently. In conclusion, the Earth has seen many periods of mass extinction, when entire families of creatures vanished forever. Some of these creatures were so bizarre and terrifying that they seem like mere myths today. But their stories serve as a reminder of the incredible diversity of life that has existed on this planet, and the resilience of species that have managed to survive against all odds.